So I have another fixed track for you to experiment with, basically a fixed set of modules that you can explore and limit yourself, and like this get more creative. Limitations are a doorway to creativity, of course, as we all know. Now this time it's inspired by Any, a modular artist I'm sure many of you know. More specifically, it's inspired by this case that this is from Any on ModularGrid, right? Of course, things change in modular, and he had many different modules also at different times. For example, he had the Mother 32 at one time. He had the Varigate from Aleco, the voltage block from Aleco. So things changed a bit. But I think this is a nice setup to get more of the vibe of Any, right? Rings into clouds, more or less. Yeah, so we will start with this. I will start first of all with showing you the patch. I have it already ready. Of course, there is a link in the description. Then later we will see more or less how we can work a few of the modules, a few of different patching ways that you can patch things up. Again, links in the description if you want to download it. I will start with the most easiest modules, with the easiest, not the most easiest, with the easiest modules, which is Plats, 2 rings, and clouds. And they are available in VCV-Rack. So here we have Plats, 2 rings, and clouds. Right, those are the main sound sources, I believe. Clouds is important, rings is important. Right, so those are the easy modules to add. Another one that is not really easy, but it's also something that's available in VCV, is the Morphagene from Make Noise. If you want Morphagene in VCV-Rack, you go to Simpliciter from Nischi, right, which is also a sampler and mangler and all sorts of things. Of course, it's not really a Morphagene, but still it's very similar. Another module here that was a bit of a challenge is this one here that I forgot how it's pronounced. As far as I understood it from the videos I watched and the descriptions I read and interviews and stuff like this, is using this module mostly for tactile control, playing notes with the hand. Now in VCV-Rack it's a bit weird to say something in this because we still have to use the mouse. But I will zoom in a bit maybe. An interesting module that you can try is the CV pad from Impromptu. Of course, all of the modules are available in VCV2 and all of them are available for free, right? You don't have to buy anything for this. Although I'm sure all of the developers would appreciate donations, but still, everything is available for free. So this is the CV pad from Impromptu. Basically, you can set different pads with different values, also note values, if you will. We will see this also later. And then you can click with the mouse, or you can also map your MIDI controller. This can also work, and then you can change between different values. Right, so you get a bit more manual control, let's call it like this. Another module that was a bit of a challenge is Hair Mode. This is the main sequencer that Any is using. Again, from what I've seen, is using a keyboard to enter the notes, and then is saving a few different sequences there and is changing them live. And those are basically his sequences. Again, Hair Mode is not available in VCV, and also because he had also different sequences. Again, he had the Mother 32 that has a sequence, he had the voltage block, the Varigate. Right, so I thought for this setup, something really interesting, an interesting sequencer we can use is Orca's Heart from Scanner Darkly. Right, it has 4 channels for notes, 4 channels for modulation. It has a quantizer or even 2 quantizers you can switch between. It has an internal clock. You can clock it externally and all sorts of different functions. It can really be interesting for this setup. But if you want more control, if you want something a bit more like Hair Mode, I recommend Foundry from Impromptu. It has also 4 channels, and you can go and program sequences, program phrases, sequence them into songs, and have much more control. Also here you can connect your keyboard and record sequences. So if you want something with a bit more control, you can go with Foundry. Now, 2 more sort of easy modules were the Triad from IntelliGel, which is basically a 3-channel attenuator, attenuverter, mixer, very similar to shades that we have available in VCV-Rack, right? Again, 3 channels, attenuation, attenuversion, and mixing. Right, so this was not really a problem. Another easy module was the VCA. Again, from what I've seen, is using it mostly for manual level control, so it's not really using it as a VCA. Sometimes maybe as well. So here in VCVREC we have also the dual VCA from Bog Audio, right? So you can manually control it, you can control it with CV and so on. Another module, again later we will see a few examples. Another module is the Mangrove from Mannequins, which is a 4-band oscillator, I guess they are calling it. It has 2 outputs, it has sub oscillator, it has a VCA, I think it's called Air or something like this. Right, of course this is not available in VCV, but something interesting that I found is combining Blick and Basel from Volt. They have lots of ways to change the timbre and also punch as the VCA. It's a stereo VCA, but you can also take the left and the right separately, right? So you have 2 separate channels, or you can use it as a stereo voice or just mix them with shades and do all sorts of different things. Again, the combination of Blick and Basel is quite interesting, and this is more or less what I thought will be interesting for Mangrove. Now there are a few modules that were quite difficult. For example, Pamela's new workout. Of course, it can do so many things. And from what I've seen, from what I understood, is using it mostly for clocks and modulation, right? Random modulation. So I have here clocked from Impromptu, which you can use as a clock. You don't have to, but if you want to use a clock, I have here the Bernoulli branches for mutable instruments, so you can add probability to this clock, right? This is also something that's available on Pamela's new workout. And 4 sections of sample and hold, right, that you can use. Don't forget, in the right-click menu, you can change the range, which type of noise, and also glide. You can also add smoothing to the sample and hold, so it's a smooth random voltage. So all of this is more or less, again, from what I've seen and from what I understood, is Pamela's new workout. Another module is Ornament and Crime. Of course, also this module can do so much. It can do basically everything, I guess. But again, from what I've seen, is using it mostly for envelopes and LFOs and also some random modulation. So we have here 2 envelopes, 2 attack decay envelopes that can also loop. So they can also act as LFOs, of course, with CV inputs. 2 LFOs that you can use that have also random function. And Caudal, which is more chaotic from Volt, for many outputs that you can use to modulate all sorts of different things, right? So this is basically Ornament and Crime and Pamela's new workout. Of course, you can add to this if you wish. I guess that if you are not adding to this, if you limit yourself, it will be more fun for you, but you can always add. Something that I didn't add to this system is picks. I just didn't think that it's needed because, again, it's an envelope, it's an LFO. We have enough of them. No need for more. And it's also drums. I don't really think the drums are fitting to this setup. I didn't see or hear any using drums so much. He's using some drums, but not always, and it's not so much. And if you want drums, you can use always plats if you want. Again, I think limiting to this small setup is quite fun. And if you are already speaking of limitations, there is also Rosie from Make Noise, which is the output module that is using. Basically, it has a crossfader here, right? So you can crossfade between A and B. Again, from what I've seen, is using only 1 input, and then this crossfader becomes level control. And there is also a stereo send here, or a stereo return actually, that is using just as another stereo channel. So is using, from what I've seen, is sending Morphogen to the stereo channel and Mangrove to the mono channel, and like this is mixing them. He has control over the level. Right, so I wanted to keep this limitation also in VCVREC. So what I've done here, I have 1 stereo channel and 1 mono channel, right, that you can use. Again, I think keeping this limitation is quite fun and can be quite creative. And this is going to a main mixer that you don't really need, but I just wanted to mix them to the output. Again, we have a stereo channel and a mono channel, and this is going to the output. So this can be somewhere there. It's not a part of the patch really. But this is more or less basically the patch, again, based on this case that I found on ModularGrid. Of course, things change always in modular. You can also change stuff, but this is more or less the spirit, I guess. that you can try and experiment with. So let's really see a few ways we can patch stuff. So let's really start with the sequencer. Right, again, we have 4 channels we can use. We can sequence things. So let's sequence 2 rings modules, right? We have 2 rings. So I will send one CV to one rings and another CV output to the second one. No need to strum them because they will be strummed with pitch change. This, let's send this to clouds, right? Classic rings into clouds. And for now, let's send clouds directly to the output. Right, something like this. Very nice. And now we have 2 quantizers here we can use, right, and switch between, and we can also pitch them octave up and down. For now, let's leave it down. So let's say here we will have C, E flat, and G, and the second one will be D, G, and B flat, right? And now we can switch with this button here. Right, again, it has an internal clock. We can change the length of the sequence from 8 to 32. You can see this also here. The algorithm. Right, something like this. But let's do this. Let's use the clock. Let's use clocked to clock it, but with some probability, right? So I will use one output of clock to the Bernoulli gate, and this will add probability according to where this knob is. So I will take output A to the clock input of the sequencer. Right, maybe we can make this a bit quicker. Right, and then we can change the probability so it will come out less from output A. Right. And now we have here the clock and reset outputs. Now the clock output we don't need, but the reset output will output a trigger whenever the sequencer is finishing its cycle, right? So we can use it to trigger the switching of the quantizers, right? So there will be one time the sequence will play with one quantizer, and then it will switch to the second one, right? Just like this. Right, another thing we can do, we can use, for example, the second part of branches to change the octaves. Right, so if I click this button here, it will change to latch mode, which means that it will basically output gates from output A and B that I can use to then change the octaves. Right, maybe I will use a slower clock. Let's use the main clock, right? Or even a slower one, I can use a division. Right. Let's change the sound a bit of rings. So I will go with sympathetic strings. Let's go with polyphony. Right, this is the red mode. Basically, the notes will continue ringing. Right, change the structure maybe. Right. And of course the damping we can modulate, let's say with caudal. Right, so let's take 2 outputs from caudal to the damping, which is basically the decay. Let's do this a bit less speed, so it's slower. Right, and open here that attenuator a bit. So there is change. Also the brightness we can modulate. Right, really you have so many things you can try here to add movement and to add all sorts of different things. Right, now let's add clouds. I will keep it in granular mode. You can choose any of the other modes. I like looping delay as well. And by the way, if you want, you can also use Supercell from Grayscale, which is basically clouds, but it has all of the features on the panel, on also the CV inputs and so on. And it has also the so-called alternative modes. So there is Oliver, Resonator, Bit Repeat, and Spectral Clouds if you want to experiment with them. Right, I use clouds here because this is what's available in VCV, but... Right, so now I can, if it's granular mode, let's change the input gain a bit. And by changing the texture to the right, we start introducing random grains. Right, we can have them also one octave up by changing the pitch to 1. Size and density. Oh, sorry, that was the density. will generate grains, random grains. And the texture all the way right will make it nice and smeared. Right, and now we can add some panning and lots of reverb, of course. Right. Do this. Another thing that NN is doing, at least from what I've seen, is adding also reverb in the computer after the recording. So if you need more reverb here in this patch, feel free to add like plateau or something like this, or your favorite reverb, because sometimes I feel like this patch needs a bit more reverb other than clouds. The clouds reverb is nice, but it can be better. I will change the quality here, the buffer quality, to a lower quality, just so it's fun, nice and gritty. Right, maybe make this slower, you know what? No need for it to be so quick. Right, now this, for example, if I take this and I send this to Simpliciter, right, and I start recording a bit, and then I can take it also out from Simpliciter already, right? Just recording a bit, right? Then in the right-click menu, first of all, we can normalize it in the right-click menu so it's louder. And we can also do the S-Pen store trick. So basically it will cut the sample in half, just a second. It will cut it in half and switch the parts and add a crossfade so it will not click. Basically it will just loop continuously without any clicking, right? And now we have this, and we can play it in reverse, maybe an octave down, right? Something like this. So another way you can use this. Right, let's add the so-called mangrove now, or the bleak and basil. I will take the wave of bleak all the way right, so it's nice and smooth. And I will mix them with the shades with the mixer. Opala, sorry, I hope you can see everything. Yeah. Right, so now I have them mixed here, and this I will go to the mono output. Opala. Right, start adding them. Right. Something like this, let's see. Maybe I can tune one an octave down. And anyway, they are needing tuning because we are dealing with rings, so let's tune one. Just a second. Right, this is better. This is also better. So we have also a sort of a bass. We can change the timbre. Right, and of course this we can do also with modulation. So let's add sample and hold, for example, right? I will use the clock maybe from the sequencer just for fun. To trigger one sample and hold, this will go to the wave of bleak and to the mode 1 of basil. And again in the right click menu I can add smoothing to this. Smoothing? Is this something? Smoothen it out. Right, and just add some modulation here. Just to add movement. And now with the CV pad, for example, I can control the pitch, I can play the pitch. So let's have a look at this. For example, I can say the pad 1 will be no change, so it will be this note. Then pad 2, I can quantize it, right? And then say I want this to be notes. Right here, I can quantize it here, so the movement of the knob will be quantized to semitones, and it will also show me, instead of volts, it will show me pitch information. And I want actually to go to the flat because we have E flat and B flat, right? So let's say, again, the first note will stay on C, the second one will go to, let's say, G, and then here we will have, let's say, again, B flat, right? So now when I send the CV to both Bleak and Basil, now I can basically play this. But maybe we want this an octave down. Oh, this is nice. Right? And again, this needs a bit more reverb actually, to be honest, but so if you want, you can add more reverb. And I also really recommend connecting some sort of a MIDI controller and play stuff with your hand. You can do all sorts of different things. Right, this is just some basic patching, just to show you the sequencer and the CV pad. Right, and simpliciter maybe a bit. But that's it. I will leave you with more sounds. Again, download the patch, experiment with it, see what you can get with this small limited setup. It can be quite fun. Thank you for watching, and cheers.